Hey guys, Filmsuit here. So I just got back from Trance, and oh man, this was a crazy ass movie. Oh, I should let you know, spoiler alert, big time in this review. It's hard not to talk about this movie without giving at least one or two spoilers. So, Trance is Danny Boyle's newest film. In case any of you who are watching this review don't know, Danny Boyle is the guy who's directed some of my all-time favorite movies, which include Trainspotting, Sunshine, 28 Days Later, and Slumdog Millionaire. Now, this is his newest film, and it still proves that Boyle is capable just of being awesome with visuals and a crazy story. Anyway, so yeah, it's a heist film, and it stars James McAvoy as this art auctioneer named Simon, who agrees to help this thief named Frank, played by Vincent Cassel, stage a robbery at an auction that he's working at to steal a painting that turns out to be worth like 30 million pounds. Yeah, this is a British movie, in case you can't tell. And so yeah, he helps him steal the painting, but what happens is he gets knocked out during the bank robbery, and when he wakes up out of his coma, he can't remember where he hid it. And so Frank tries to torture him to get the information out of him in a really brutal scene where he just rips his fingernails off, and that doesn't do the trick. And so realizing that Simon is telling the truth, he decides that the best thing to do is to hire a hypnotherapist named Elizabeth, played by Rosario Dawson, to help Simon try to recount where he hid this painting. But once Elizabeth gets involved, things get way more complicated because both men fall in love with her, and she's kind of playing both. She's playing both of them, and you're not sure which one she's playing and who she has feelings for. So, yeah, bottom line, this is a crazy ass movie. Yeah, I don't know if I think I've said that already, but yeah, it is insane. It's like it's about an hour and a half long, and the first hour is pretty much a British gangster movie. Like, that's all it is. It's a heist movie, but it has a psychological twist as you go into more detail with the hypnotherapy concept of the film, which is actually a very fascinating piece. Like, this movie is like Inception's independent younger brother, although not as good, but I'll get to that. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things to say about this movie. Like, first off, Danny Boyle, my favorite thing about his movies is his visuals. His cinematographic style, his editing, everything about his movies is just beautiful. And soundtrack. He, once again, has an amazing soundtrack in this movie. So, yeah, he has a great soundtrack. This movie is beautifully photographed, well edited, and it has a really good and crazy story. Like, this is where spoilers come in, so turn off the review if you don't want any spoilers. But yeah, the first hour of the movie is a heist movie, because, I don't know, in a gangster movie. And, but like I said, with a psychological twist, and like, first half hour is very simple and straightforward. The next half hour is where it's just twist after twist, because Simon is constantly hypnotized so much to the point where you're not sure when he's exactly, like, when he's awake or when he's actually dreaming. And like, there is one insane sequence here, and this is probably one of my favorite sequences in any Danny Boyle movie now, where Simon thinks that Frank and his gang are going to kill him, and so he calls Elizabeth, and she guides him through the apartment in the same way that Morpheus guides Neo through his office to get away from the agents the beginning of the Matrix. So yeah, Elizabeth guides Simon through Frank's apartment, helps him find a gun. He goes and kills everyone in Frank's gang, and then all of a sudden, when Frank tries to tell him that, and when Frank tries to tell him that Elizabeth is playing him to get him back on his side, Simon blows off Frank's head, but then Frank rises up with literally half his head missing. It's like up to here. His mouth is still intact, but like everything else is just gone. And but Frank continues to talk, and he says, "You know she's playing you," and that's when you realize that he's hypnotized, and just so it does that quite a bit throughout the movie, and then the last half hour takes a huge, insane turn that just completely almost switches genres. Almost, it goes from being a the psychological gangster movie to being a full-on psycho stalker thriller when you find out the big twist, which is well, I gave a spoiler alert, so what the hell, here it is. You find out that Elizabeth and Simon, that they had dated in the past, and what happened was Simon got very controlling and abusive and obsessive over Elizabeth, and it got very dangerous and violent to the point where she couldn't really do anything. Like, the police wouldn't help her. She couldn't get a restraining order, and she kept letting him back in and just subjecting herself to his abuse. So she hypnotized him to get him to forget her. But in the end, once she reveals that, it brings Simon's dark side out of him that you didn't know he had. And so, therefore, like, Simon, who we're rooting for this whole movie, and we're just agonized while watching him get tortured, we actually don't feel so sorry for him anymore, and we actually grow. And Boyle brilliantly flips the switch to where we are rooting for Frank, and we're rooting against Simon. And this movie, there is no good guy in this movie, because Elizabeth is very much a femme fatale character, and she gets away with the painting. So yeah, like, and just, yeah, you figure out she plays them both. And with that said, yeah, this movie has an insane storyline, and what I love about it is that, aside from it being very surreal and just having twist after twist, and I really admire movies that are able to do two things, which is, one, completely take a huge turn in the last movie that was different and unexpected, kind of like how Looper went from being a sci-fi action movie to being a supernatural horror movie almost in the last 30 minutes of that. This is what Trance did, like, and that's what I loved about it, how it goes from being a heist movie to a psychological, to like a psycho thriller. Yeah, that's was rambling on here, but yeah, that's one thing I loved about this movie, and I also loved how no one here is perfect. This movie has no saints at all. Everyone is deceitful, greedy, violent, manipulative, but yet we aren't sure who to root for. Like, because for a majority of the movie, we want to root for James McAvoy because, you know, he's the hero. But when you find out just how crazy and abusive and pathetic he is in the last half hour, then we kind of want to root for the very vicious and violent and suave Vincent Cassel, who was just a total prick throughout most of this movie. Yeah, I love that. Now, with that said, there are some negative things, like, for starters, like with Elizabeth's character, so with Rosario Dawson, with her character, like, her sex scenes were strange. They were weird. Like, she has two sex scenes with both the main characters in this movie, and they both just felt very forced. It's like, well, we should try to throw in a sex scene or two to spice things up and keep it interesting. And the way, and like, she goes fully nude in her scene with James McAvoy, but the way she presents herself and the way it's shot, it almost just felt forced. It felt very unnecessary. I feel like that if if they had kept it more implied and didn't have to reveal everything, then the scene would have probably been more effective and sexier and, more romantic. But then again, I'm kind of old-fashioned when it comes to sex scenes in movies. I find that most sex scenes these days are kind of forced, and that was an example of a forced sex / nude scene. And, what else? There are other criticisms. Oh yeah, the ending of this movie, granted, even though I said I really enjoyed the ending and the turnout, it kind of bothered me. It had the same ending as Boyle's previous movies, Shallow Grave and The Beach, because basically in the ending, like, in the ending of all three movies, like, friends turn on each other in the climax of the movie, all for one object, and in the end, like, the most innocent one of the three goes insane and dies, while the two edgier people, they live and kind of reflect on that, and then they end up, and like, the guy ends up getting a message from the girl in the end saying, hey, and just kind of showing it off, implying that there's still feelings even though there's no trust. And it's like, alright, that's interesting, and I like what you've done, but you've ended 3 movies on that note now. I mean, don't you think it's time to end a movie on a different note? But yeah, and so yeah, the ending, like I said, it nicely tied up the movie. It's just, like, Boyle kind of recycled an ending that he's used twice already, so it's kind of, didn't really do anything for me. And let's see, what else? Yeah, I think that's about it. All in all, this was a very fun and crazy heist movie. I would definitely recommend going to see it if you want a good mind trip. If you're a huge Danny Boyle fan, don't expect this to be his best movie. Like, all Boyle fans should know that his best movie is reserved, the movie reserved for best Danny Boyle movie is either Trainspotting or 28 Days Later. Or, with more mainstream people, Slumdog Millionaire. But yeah, that's it. And tune in a while for The Place Beyond the Pines.